All right, everyone, it's been a very good 24 hours for Joe Biden. He's picked up two very meaningful endorsements and one that's kind of sort of meaningful. He's got Buttigieg. He endorsed the day after he dropped out. He had suspended his campaign. I probably at that point had been making calls to the other viable campaigns. There are two of them at this point. Bloomberg and Warren are not on that list. Warren should drop out. Her stubbornness is, by the way, going to throw havoc into the Massachusetts race. She could end up blocking Bernie Sanders from securing it, or she could lose it and be humiliated, and which is what I hope happens. I hope that Sanders beats her in Massachusetts. He gets Buttigieg, who had been running between 5 and 10 in most of the states for Super Tuesday. That's very meaningful. He got Klobuchar. Klobuchar matters most for specifically Minnesota. That's her home state. She was polling high enough there because of her focus there, so that probably swings that to Joe Biden. At this point, he'll probably win, because if you take the numbers he was already at, and you add in Klobuchar endorsing him and Buttigieg, that gets him pretty high up there. In fact, if you take Biden's numbers on the Super Tuesday states and add half of Buttigieg's support to him, he ends up winning, probably the Magic Four, which is what I've said he needs to be viable. If he doesn't, by the way, if he underwhelms, if it turns out that these endorsements don't fucking mean a thing and he ends up getting wiped out by Sanders anyway, at that point the Dems have made their bed, let him sleep in it. Socialism has usurped the Democratic Party, and at that point they've got a terrible choice to make. Will they utilize superdelegates the way they were meant to be used to stop Bernie Sanders from running roughshod over a party that was never meant to be far left, was meant to be sane, was meant to be American, not meant to be Soviet? Or will they bow to the pressure of the lynch mob mentality of direct democracy, which is what it's devolved into? A lot of people think that we're in a direct democracy, and they have a problem with any party or other political apparatus that blocks that from being the operative procedure. That's what superdelegates are for, but the thing is, they would essentially be handing the election to Trump by doing that. And the Democrats would cry foul. And even the more pragmatic Democrats would say, just let Bernie Sanders lose and let him look like an ass. And he probably would lose. This increases Biden's odds substantially of doing well enough so that in a war of attrition he wins against Bernie Sanders. But still, by no means is that necessarily going to happen. You've got to remember, Biden's demented. And I don't mean that figuratively. He's got Alzheimer's disease. It's as obvious, it's as plain as day to anyone watching him speak. On a regular basis, he's constantly making major errors. Like he can't even remember what the United States stands for. Oh, we hold these truths to be something self-evident or whatever. Did you see that? That was the other day. Biden.exe stopped working, somebody said earlier to me. The dude's a fruitcake. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't even, someone else has to remind him to wear his pants when he goes out on stage. That being said, if you take his numbers, which have been mediocre in a lot of those states, and add it to even a small proportion of the sort of support that Klobuchar and Buttigieg had in states they targeted, that probably gives him enough states going forward to keep him viable. They reached out, I'm sure, in the last 24 hours to both the Biden camp and the Sanders camp, and I can guarantee you that what Bernie said was essentially, I'm not giving you political favors. Biden said, yeah, we can get you a cabinet position, because that's the sort of politician he is. Slimy? Yeah, maybe. Underhanded? Yeah, but it gets you endorsements now, doesn't it? Bernie Sanders will learn the hard way about political pragmatism, and then he also got Beto O'Rourke's endorsement. Now, does this matter? No, but neither did Marianne Williams' endorsement of Bernie Sanders, all 10 people that still care about who she is now that she's no longer the meme candidate because she's not a candidate anymore. They might have swung over. With Beto O'Rourke, the only thing that's meaningful there is the fact that he's a Texan, and Texas is one of the Super Tuesday states. While Sanders has been ahead in polling aggregates, there are some bright spots for Biden there, and now there is at least the remotest possibility Biden grabs Texas, which would, by the way, essentially he would seal the deal if he grabs that. It would provide a huge counterbalance to Bernie Sanders' overwhelming lead in California. In the delegate total at the end of Super Tuesday, this throws everything into doubt, because what I was looking at the other day when I analyzed things was Klobuchar hadn't yet dropped out. She did later, after the video. But Buttigieg had dropped out but not endorsed anyone, and Beto O'Rourke hadn't weighed in. None of those three things were taken into consideration when I said, well, the fact that Buttigieg is merely out and the fact that, of course, and his endorsement matters a lot. Some people were like, no, Buttigieg's people probably prefer Elizabeth Warren. Maybe so. Now, though, they've got to follow their candidate if they actually gave a damn about him. I was looking at a situation where his win in South Carolina and his relatively close delegate total gives him at least enough states to keep going. That leads to a contested convention. In a contested convention, even if he comes in a bit behind, I would favor them to throw the election towards Biden and say, look, Bernie Sanders is almost 80. At that point, he'll be 79 years old. He's 79. He's got heart problems. He is a self-professed socialist, a word that is considered to be negative by the average independent voter, overwhelmingly across literally every age group in the country, including younger voters, including millennial independent voters. Bernie Sanders is unelectable, especially when there's no sign that the economy is going to collapse before Election Day. If coronavirus can't achieve that, I'm sorry, Dems, but you're not going to get your Bill Maher wish or your Michael Moore wish. These people are hoping for a recession right now. I don't think it's going to happen. Even meager economic news is enough. The average American supports the economy. That's the one bright spot in Trump's polling that he's had consistently almost throughout the entirety of his political career. And of course, he's rising in general as well. Kitty is right now hitting the webcam with its tail. You should come over here. You should clumber in front so people can see you're adorable. Yeah, anyway, the cat's probably going to vote for Trump too. I figured dead people can vote, so why not animals? At least they're still alive. More intelligent than a corpse. More intelligent than Joe Biden at this point. And probably most of Bernie Sanders fans. As far as Super Tuesday goes with the endorsement side of things, Biden gets a huge boost from it. Even Buttigieg just dropping out, I figured would at least raise Biden's expectations by a few points. Really, all he needs is 3 points across the board in all of the Super Tuesday states in order to crack 4 states, in order to grab enough delegates to be a viable candidate. If, though, and this is now unlikely, but it's still possible, if, though, Bernie Sanders outperforms expectations, there's no reason to believe he will, but if he does today, if he grabs up an extra state, Biden ends up with 2 or 3. He outperforms across the board, grabs up extra delegates in proportional allotment. If that happens, Bernie Sanders will be the nominee. The Democrats will lose in 2020. I'll be ready to make my prediction at that point, barring one of two things. Recession, economic collapse, in other words, could defeat Trump. Or Trump has, heart palpitations or something. He has a stroke. He has health problems or dies. Those would be the only ways the Democrats would win with Bernie Sanders. I'm sorry, Bernie bros, but it's just not going to happen. You're not going to get socialism. It's too unpopular. To tell the truth, you may think otherwise because you look at cooked polls or you look at data that was compiled by the Huffington Post, but if you look at anything independent and legitimate, socialism is vastly disapproved of. Capitalism still rules the roost in the United States, even if we are under a mixed economy with elements of socialism already anyway. We don't need more. The elements of socialism we've already got are bad enough. Having to pay a 25% tax rate so Uncle Sam can go bomb things, I think, is unethical. I'll be doing a video on that as well. That's about all. Peace out.